Hello fellow travelers. Today we're going to learn how to build the iconic Rangemaster Treble Booster. I recently learned that the Rangemaster was used by my favorite iconic bands like Brian May from Queen, or Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, or Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest. And what the treble booster was, it was a very simple, and it wasn't even a guitar pedal back then. It was a very simple device that sat on your amp, and it was a very simple sort of buffered high pass filter. At that time, people thought that their box amp sounded a little bit dark, and they wanted a way to boost the highs. And so this is a very simple one transistor amplified treble booster. And the really interesting thing about it is that the geranium transistor that they used and that you will use is actually rather horrible. And when they built the Rangemaster, they didn't really create a treble booster. What they created was the very first distortion pedal. And that's what that really is. And I'm going to show you how to make that for, I believe you could make it for under 30 bucks. And I'm going to show you how to do that today with the help of my kitty here. Alright, I started the video by saying today I was going to build a Rangemaster. Like, I woke up and just decided that that's the thing that I needed to do. And the reality of it is that I've been thinking about building one for quite some time. And when I think about those things, what I usually do is I'll go out and I'll take one of my plastic tubs and I'll write on it whatever it is that I'm planning to build or do. And over a period of time, I'll start gathering parts and throwing it in there. Sometimes I might drop a sheet of paper in here with the parts that I need and kind of check them off as I go along. Now, to do this as inexpensively as possible, what I did is I ran an ad saying that I would buy broken guitar pedals for $10. And I got some different pedals, and one of them was a BBE main squeeze. This is the circuit board that was in there. I guess I could have fixed this pedal, but really I wanted the housing, I wanted the switch, I wanted the input and output jack. This already says volume and bias, things that I know I'm going to need. And so for $10, I got one of those. And with it too came some nice knurled knobs that I can use, and the battery housing, and some, just all the parts that I would need. Thrown into my bucket as well is the transistor and the different caps and resistors I'm going to need. So I've got all the parts. Oh, and I should mention, to make this as inexpensive as possible too, I went online and I found a printed and silk-screened little circuit board that I'm planning to use. I could have done this on a Vero board, but it just seemed to make more sense to spend the $7 and be able to fit these parts on the smallest possible footprint. I believe I'll be able to use, instead of trying to solder into all these little holes, I'm just going to drop in a header, and I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible to plug in. So what we have so far is $10 spent on a housing, $7 spent on the circuit board, and I believe this cost me another $7 or $8 for the transistor. that I'm going to use. So here's where we're at now. The reality is I didn't just wake up today and decide that I'm going to do this. I have been gathering parts for some time. The Rangemaster in its simplest form is like this. Some signal comes in, it goes through a cap, and the way this cap works, it acts as a high-pass filter. The smaller the value of your capacitor, the less low end that goes through. So signal comes in, it goes through a cap, and then it gets amplified by that transistor that actually does a pretty crappy job that makes it distort. That's what we want. In our version, we're going to make the tone selectable. So what we're going to do is the signal's going to come in, it'll actually go through 3 caps all at once, and then we're going to use an on, off, on switch to choose which of these we want. And the on, off, on, most of the switches are what they call single pole, but this can be in a neutral position, it can be like that, or it could be up like this. And the way capacitors work, capacitors in parallel are additive to their value. So what we have is we're going to have 3 capacitors, a 5 nanofarad, a 5 nanofarad, and a 1 microfarad cap. And I realize that really 4.7 is a standard value. And all you have to do is when you get your circuit board or whatever it is you use, look at where the signal comes in, and the first place that you connect is where you should take your 3 caps and twist their leads together, one side of their leads, so that signal goes into all 3. And then from there, you just take the outputs into each one of the lugs of your on-off on switch, and this way, when you're not doing anything, the signal comes in, it goes through a 5 nanofarad cap, and it just comes right on out as 5 nanofarad. If I flip it into this position, it'll run through, I'll be able to see these 2 caps in parallel, so I'll get 10 nanofarad. Or if I switch it the other way, I'll get basically 1 microfarad with 5 nanofarad added. This will be pretty much full range. The 10 nanofarad is traditional. 5 is a pretty tony aggressive way to do it. And so I've already built that right here where these 3 are twisted together. That'll be connected to the input of that cap there, and then with the output connected to the other side. So basically I've just sort of jumpered in a switch instead of a single cap. And I'll go over this more as I go along. I realize there are better ways than just filming off the screen, but this is the quickest way to get my point across. So check it out. I built a digital mock-up of the circuit using a program called Every Circuit. And I believe that's a Google program, Every Circuit. $15 a year. You can make all kinds of fun little circuits. Real simple, much easier to use than LT Spice. Not as powerful, but I can change parts. I can move things around. Right now, we can start to see what the waveform of this looks like running through. Let me just tilt up a little bit. That's better. Completely ridiculous. But you can see how that's definitely compressing, chopping off the lower wave. This pot here that I've just highlighted In the original Rangemaster, that's just a fixed resistor. And there are websites where people talk about, well, maybe you should use this value or that value. On mine, I'm going to make it just a pot. I'm just going to make it a variable pot. You can see how that changes the waveform. And that pot is the bias. It's a bias on that transistor there. So, depending on how you bias it, you're going to get different waveforms. Yeah, that's really saturated. If it's now there, as you can see, that's actually fairly clean. So you would have like a really clean, punchy, bright end thing. So yeah, you'll be able to control that in real time. Once again, the program's called Every Circuit. Real simple to use in my opinion. You just you come up here and grab the stuff you want. I want an op amp, and you can bring it in and start wrapping parts around it. And then you can run it and see how things are going to look. So, quick digital mock-up. Let's take a quick look at where we are. We have the circuit board, and it's been stuffed, and that was fairly easy. You'll notice I have the header there. I'll leave a link in the description below that shows you where to get that. Now, this thing, of course, isn't completely stuffed. There are two spots. There's this area here where there should be a cap, and that is now this adjustable cap. And we have one other place, which is right here where there should be a 68K resistor. And what I've done is I've added a basically a variable resistor trimmer that you'll be able to control from the top of the pedal. And here's what I did. I took a trimmer, and you're going to do this too if you do this mod. I take a trimmer, and I take the first two lugs, and that's if you're looking down on a trimmer just like that. I take the first two lugs, and I just take a piece of wire and just wire them together. That way, when you turn the trimmer, it really just sort of becomes a variable wiper. And then to the front of it, because I don't want to ever go below 56K. Now the original had 68K, but at 56K, I can go a little less than the original, and that's a resistor that's soldered to the front of this pot. You can see it looks just like that. And if you look, when I do my wipe, the lowest I can ever go is 55K, and I can take that all the way up to 106. So I've got a bit of range there. So here's where we're at now, and really the last part is doing some testing, making sure everything works the way I think it's going to work, and getting it all put inside the box. Okay, check it out. Let's see where we're at. Right now the circuit board is stuffed. I've added the two modifications are now wired in. I also have the little wiring harness. Currently, I've got some wires, leads attached to it. And then these go to the in, the out, the power. They'll go to this. They go to that switch. They go to the LED. Some of you might be saying, well, I don't have these cool connectors. Really, they're pennies. You can get a simple punch tool for a couple bucks to punch these in. If you do any kind of DIY work or making your own things, you're going to come across a lot of situations where it'd make way more sense to just, plug in what you need, or to be able to unplug it. So I'll be able to pull this when I wire everything else up. So I've got my holes drilled. I've got my circuit board wired up. Really the last thing I need to do now is attach these to the its other pot, to the battery, wire in the LED, and we'll be ready for testing. Hey Dobie, I had to put you in the playpen because you weren't behaving, were you? Nope, that's right. Into the playpen you go till I finish. So now I've got the inside of this unit wired up. By putting everything on this little, I guess plug would be the right word. I'm able to wire the box up without having to bring in, these other pieces. So everything's wired in. All I have to do is plug in the main circuit board and I'll be ready for testing. One of the final things I wish to do is a simple test. I want to make sure that the unit's functioning as I think it is. I'm lucky I've got a little oscilloscope. I can run a weak signal through this unit. I can see that my little cap mod is working. I can also see that my bias is working as well. So that's good to see. I can see it's pretty well saturated and I'm fairly happy with it. My LED comes on. Now I can figure out how I'm going to stuff the rest of it inside the box. I'm probably going to actually use some sort of, maybe epoxy or gasket sealer or something real basic and just kind of glue that in there. And that's where we're at. And this is the unit now with all the parts stuffed in. It looks pretty insane in there, but it's really not that bad. I could always unplug this connector. I used the cheap gasket sealer just to stick the circuit board to, so that it wouldn't be free floating, and the caps are just hanging out there. Everything sort of fits in, and then with the battery compartment and the back piece, it's very usable. I was hoping, like a lot of people hope, that the inside would be just absolutely gorgeous and turn it into posters and such, but it's still a lot of things to stick in a small space, but I accept it. Alright everybody, we are upstairs in my testing station. Perhaps I should dust it instead of building these things. Regardless. For the test, I've got a little combo amp I recently built. It's very similar to like a Vox AC10. The front end is very similar to a 50s Vox. And I've got the treble booster. You'll also notice, well maybe you can't notice, but I also have a little tube screamer after it, where I'm using that for just an additional boost. I think one of the mistakes I made was not testing the transistor in advance. As a matter of fact, I've noticed that a lot of people will get like a box of these transistors and look for the one with the highest output, and I didn't feel like doing that. So let me make sure I'm recording. Looks like I am. Let me give you a couple poorly played samples. This is my Vox-like amp with nothing in it. I'm definitely driving it a little bit hard, but you can hear it. A little muddy, but sounds like an old school Vox amp. This is with the treble booster. That's all right. it's definitely doing that treble booster thing, but it just needs just a touch of a little more push. I don't have any drive or tone on the Tube Screamer. I'm just using it as a little bit of a boost, just to give it a helping hand. Like that mistake? If I had to do it again, I would. I'd probably get some other transistors to play with, but I'm really happy. And the way it's built, I can always pop that circuit out, buy another $7 circuit board. I've got spare bits to put in it. The other thing I would say is the 1 microfarad cap that I used is way too large. I should have went with 100 nanofarad. It makes this thing almost sound like a weird sagged out fuzz box. Take a listen. And there you have it, a poorly played guitar with our brand new treble booster. And I'll keep this one. I'll probably build a different one with a little more output, but this is going to be a great little guitar pedal for me, and at the end of the day, I'm really happy with how it sounds.